Welcome to the Speaking of Writers podcast, where we dive into the world of publishing today with one of the industry's most respected voices in book publicity and marketing. My guest, Brian Feinblum, a veteran with more than 3 decades of experience helping thousands of authors navigate publishing, book promotion, and the ever-changing landscape of media. Brian is the founder of his own book publicity firm and the creator of the award-winning blog Book Marketing Buzz Blog, boasting over 5 million page views and more than 5,400 posts. He's worked with best-selling authors, debut writers, celebrities, and thought leaders like Dr. Ruth, Seth Godin, Henry Winkler. His insights appear often in The Writer and IBPA's The Independent, and he's spoken across the nation at industry conferences and associations. Brian is joining us for the second time here on the Speaking of Writers podcast. Brian, welcome back.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
You've seen publishing evolve for, more than 30 years now. What is the biggest shift as we come to the end of the year here in 2025? The biggest shift you saw this year, and how is it looking for next year right now, too?
Two good questions. So things in publishing tend to move slower than other industries. So even when there's something like AI, there is some early adoption of it in different ways, which we can talk about. But overall, the industry just seems to go year to year. If they could do a little bit better next year, everyone seems to be happy. And that's kind of the pace that they're at. This year, sales look to be a little bit better than last year. And the previous year was a little bit better than the prior year. So the good news, the trend is still upward. People are reading books. People are buying books. Not at the pace they were, let's say, a generation ago. But nevertheless, the industry is solid. Barnes & Noble opened up more bookstores this past year. Independent bookstores have grown in every year for the past 15 or 18 years. So there is obviously a marketplace for books. So if people say no one reads anymore, that's not true. They do read. And in fact, the ebook, we always thought would take over the industry, and it has not. Paper books are still responsible for about 75 or 80% of the revenue for publishers. Audiobooks have become so popular that they've exceeded the sales of ebooks. So you're more likely to see someone listening to a book than reading an ebook, based on the numbers that I'm saying. There are tons of books being published every day. The independent author or the self-published author is still the one that's growing the industry in terms of the number of new titles that are coming out. For every book that's published by traditional publishers, like our Penguin Random House, there's something like 5 self-published books that are being published. So it's a 1-to-5 ratio. And that doesn't mean that all the books that traditional publishers put out are great, nor does it mean that every book that's self-published is bad. It's somewhere in between. There are definitely some quality books out there in the self-publishing world. And over the years, most of my client base has shifted from being traditional publishers, traditionally published authors, to self-published and independent authors, because there are just so many authors out there, and the literary agents and the book publishers can't keep up even if they want to. And they've been growing. When I got into the industry about 35 years ago, there were 45,000 new books a year from the traditional publishers. Now there are 550,000 books just from them. So they've grown 10 or 12-fold. And of course, the self-publishing industry, which didn't really exist back then other than some vanity publishers, now everyone can publish a book, and they do. So that seems to be where we're heading. More books, more stores. Audio, I think, is going to continue to grow. It's been growing by double digits every year for the past, I think, decade and a half or so. Ever since they went to being able to download audiobooks, as opposed to audiobooks on record, audiobooks on tape, if you remember, CD. Now it's not a physical item, so everything is downloadable, and that people seem to love, that they can just get it on any device, listen in their car, listen on their phone when they're traveling or commuting or doing their exercise, cooking, whatever it may be. So that seems to be a growing area. And children's books are still very important, that the physical children's books, those are still growing. The number of children is not growing. So the demographics of the US is actually changing a lot. The country is not reproducing like it used to. And now with immigration decreasing heavily, at least illegal immigration, the number of new potential readers is slowing down, because the country is just not growing the way it used to, at the rate it used to. So I'm not sure what long-term effect that'll have, but yeah. Go
Let's
ahead. I'm sorry.
touch on AI. How has the rise
Yes.
of AI on both the writing and marketing sides changed the industry?
Yes. I mean, some things I suspect we don't even know is going on, meaning I think a lot of writers are at least dabbling with AI. At a minimum, it could be a helpful editing tool. It could be a prompt to get ideas for. Sometimes authors will throw in some of their writings to AI to see what would AI do with it. Here's the premise, or here's the first few chapters, and some people may let AI continue to write their books for them. Basically, the publishers want to know, if they can't tell, they want to know if you've actually created the work or not. But I suspect, as a few years go by, people will just not differentiate. It's just, I'm going to read a book that I like, however it was created, whether it's man-made or not. So I think we're going to see a flood of books probably in the coming few years, because as AI gets better and people are more willing to use it, you're going to see more AI creations come about. So it'll be robots writing for humans, and then in certain cases, humans may have the robots read the books for them, if it's like a business book or a book for school. So it's really weird. Not every book will be read or written by a human being, but the
Yeah.
information will be out there and consumed somehow.
The music
So
industry is wrestling with it too. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. In terms of the use of it, it seems like percentage-wise, a lot of publishers are experimenting with using AI to help in editing and to help in marketing books. But I haven't heard of anything so clear-cut or obvious that says you got to do this. And, some things can save you some time, but you still need humans to do a lot of tasks and a lot of things. I have a couple of friends who are lawyers, and they told me there are things that AI can very easily do that they no longer need paralegals to do. So people's whole jobs are eliminated because AI can research and read things with a fair amount of accuracy. That said, someone still has to look and see if AI spit out something that was legitimate. There are also court cases where lawyers present cases that don't actually exist, because somehow AI made them up or gave them a name. So it's a strange time for things, but AI is definitely going to keep growing, and I think there'll be a greater adoption of it.
Let's talk about the publishers. Are publishers taking more risks today or fewer?
Yeah, I think publishers in general don't take many risks. The traditional publisher, the way that they work now, they put out a lot of titles in a given season. The big seasons are fall and spring. Sometimes there's a summer or winter, but really it's 2 seasons a year. And so they look at things more conservatively. They look at something, can it at least not lose money? If they think a book is really interesting or fits the marketplace needs, they just try and look to see how confident are we that the book won't lose money. So if that's the case, if they think a book will make them even just a few $1,000s, let's say $5,000, but they publish thousands and thousands and thousands of these books, so that's where they start to make millions of dollars. It could be small books that sell 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 copies, but they can make money from that. If they think, oh, there's a chance we're going to lose money, then they're going to stay away from it. The big books that really pay for everything, the big breakthrough books that even they didn't anticipate were going to happen, that sell hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of copies, those just happen. There are times where editors will say, we had no idea this was going to be this big. There was no major advance paid. The person was unknown. They do like to bring in authors now who have a social media following or background. So all things being equal, you could write a great book. I could write a mediocre book. But if I have 150,000 followers on something and you have no followers, they're going to publish my book before yours, even though yours might be as good or better. They want the easy stuff. They want to know, can you resell books? Are you going to be a speaker? Are you going to go around and get books sold? Do you have a mailing list? Do you have contacts? If you were previously published, how well did the book sell? They use all that as a barometer to where they think to make their investments. But many publishers now don't pay big advances, or some cases very little advance, meaning they'll publish your book, but they're not like guaranteeing anything, nor is the author. And in most cases, publishers do not lose money on the books that they publish because they're so careful, I think, to pick the books that they pick. But they also don't make a ton of money on a lot of books. It's a handful of books that They sell the movie rights, the foreign rights, maybe it gets turned into a whole series. They love that. They love, that you're not just a one-off, that you write a book and they could envision, or you tell them, hey, there's going to be a 6-book series or whatever. So if something is mildly successful, they know they can replicate that. It's like the Hollywood studios. They love a good sequel and a follow-up sequel and a spin-off. How many movies have we seen of Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and et cetera, or anything like them? Because they're safe, generally. Some of those movies actually do cost a lot of money to make, so they do have to be careful. But they could see a formula and they follow that formula for sure.
When an aspiring author asks you, Brian, how do I get published? What's your first piece of advice?
I get it every day, and it's difficult. Most authors, to get published by a traditional publishing house, meaning a house that you're familiar with. You've heard of Penguin Random House, you've heard of Scholastic and HarperCollins and all their imprints. Those big publishers, most of them will say that they do not invite you to send a manuscript unsolicited. I mean, you can't just mail in an idea or a manuscript. It has to come through a literary agent. So a literary agent is someone who technically works for free until that book is sold, meaning you can write a book, go to an agent, say, hey, I've got a great idea. Can you please help me find a publisher? If they find a publisher and the publisher eventually pays money for this book, whether as an advance or in royalties, the literary agent gets 15% of everything that you make from the publisher. So if you make $1 million, they get 15%. If you make $10, they get 15%. So in order for you to get published by a reasonably decent sized publisher, you need an agent. So the agents are very difficult. They're almost harder to convince than a publisher, because the agent only gets paid purely on 15% of what you make. And what you make is typically 7 to 10% royalty of what the publisher gets. So if a $20 book sells in Barnes & Noble, chances are the publisher receives $10, 50% off from Barnes & Noble. So a $20 cover price, Barnes & Noble pays the publisher $10. The publisher then deducts their cost for printing, their overhead, and this and that, and they give the author royalty of around 7 to 10%. So an author might get on average $1 per book that's sold, and then the agent is getting 15 cents for that dollar. So you can do the math. If you sell 10,000 copies of a book, the agent only makes, what did I just say, about $1,500, I believe. So, which isn't a ton of money. But the publisher, 10,000 copies sold, in most cases, they'd be fine with that, because for 10,000 copies, based on their cost, they'll make some money. And if some of these books break through and sell 20,000, 30,000 copies, that even better. So the publishers actually, if they did accept direct contact from the authors, would probably be more willing to publish an author, but they don't have the vetting system that the agents have. The literary agents spend all their time trying to figure out if we've got a winner or not on their hands. So my advice is, first and foremost, find some of the publishers that are small presses, university presses, independent publishers that do not require an agent. That might be the sweet spot. So you don't have to go through an agent. You still have to convince somebody that you're worthy of publishing, but the bar may not be as high. And if you do well with the small press, meaning you at least sell 6,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 copies with a small press, the bigger company would then see that as a real possibility, and agents. So the second time around, you might be able to get an agent, but you need something to prove yourself. Not just a great idea, like, oh, that's an amazing thing, but actual sales, and the author needs to show that they have some sort of platform or background to get sales. So for instance, let's say you wanted to publish a book that was business oriented, and you said, hey, I know I'm going to be speaking around the country to sell this book. I know members of my organization are going to buy copies of the book, and I've got a mailing list of 2,000 people on my newsletter. So the publisher hears these things and says, okay, the author, him or herself, is going to sell some copies just built into what they do. So the publisher feels, okay, there's more assurance that we're going to get sales for this book no matter what. Whereas if you were a novelist and said, I don't have a mailing list, I don't have much of a social media footprint, I've never published before, then it's a wild card. The publisher doesn't know how much is the author really going to do to help promote and sell this book. Yes, the publisher in theory promotes the book, but they're very limited in what they do. It's sort of a sink or swim thing. They look to see, will the author do something and then we'll piggyback on that, versus, oh, we're the publisher, we'll do everything and you just show up for things. Doesn't always work out that way. It seems to be more of a dependency of the author being the one that helps push sales to the masses.
Brian, how important is timing, releasing the right book at the right cultural moment?
That's a good question. As we mentioned before, there are so many books published literally every day by the traditional publisher. The traditional publisher publishes close to 2,000 books for every day of the year, and I take it back. It's a little more than 1,500 books a day, and then multiply that by 5, you get the number of self-published books every day. So people are publishing every time. I think people do understand that there's certain windows of time to publish certain kinds of books. It used to be, and it probably still is, let's say there's a major trial going on or a murder case or something. Publishers will rush books to press. If you have something that relates to something newsworthy or a famous person, they'll get that book out as soon as they can because it's strike when the iron is hot. Whereas other books, publishers may take 18 months before they get it out. So if a publisher says, yeah, I'll publish your novel, they may pencil it in for 12 to 18 months from now to be published because there's no rush in their mind. They want to have time to get it into their supply chain and their editorial chain. So it is helpful if you have a book that ties into something that's going to be in the news. Some things you can predict, like we know America turns 250 this coming July 4th. So if you have anything that relates to history or America, you want to get it out sooner than later. If you've got books relating to, it's going to be another big election year. It's a big Olympic year coming up. So you're going to see more books on those topics, probably starting in January, February, March. There are lots of honorary anniversaries and special holidays and special months honoring every possible disease and societal issue and norm. So if you have something that ties into an anniversary date or an honorary date, it could be, it used to be Mother's Day. So any books that had to do with mothers came out within a month of Mother's Day. Father's Day books tend to be sports books and books on barbecuing and things of that, whatever manly men did back in the day. So yes, I think trying to tie into something newsworthy, something that's trendy, something that is coming up on the calendar. Many times people will try and publish books close to that time period.
What inspired you to start Book Marketing Buzz Blog? And did you expect it to reach more than 5 million views?
No, I didn't have a set expectation at that time. So I've been in the industry for a long time. I started blogging just about 15 years ago. And at the time, it was done just to promote the work that I did as a marketer and a publicist. I worked for another company. And it is a good showcase. People can see my thinking and see my writing style and know that I sound like an authority. Let's listen to him. And that's part of it. I may feel like I know my stuff and you know your stuff. So how do you show that? The blog has been very useful and it's grown a lot. It's been a steady flow. This past year, I reached the 5.5 million mark. But this year alone, I got about 1.5 million page views. So I got almost 1/3 of all of my, 15 years worth of viewership or readership this year, which is great. So, yeah. And it just keeps building. And so it's good for business, but it's also good. I love to help authors. I really love the written word. I write about literacy sometimes. I write about free speech, but mostly about book marketing and the book industry and publicity. Authors welcome the help. There's so much they need to know to promote a book these days.
Finally, what's one piece of advice you wish every author would follow?
I'll say two quick things. So one is many authors have a fear of marketing. They don't feel they know what they're doing. They don't have the time. They don't have the money. But they have to find a way to promote that book or hire someone to promote that book. Because if they don't, the book really will not get discovered or randomly discovered. One in 100,000 will get discovered. Discoverability is driven by the author. You've got to be active, either speaking engagements, social media, traditional media, advertising, book awards. There's many different ways, but you got to do something. And many authors, unfortunately, they kind of ignore it or downplay it or think my book is just so good, people will learn about it. And it's just not the case. You can cure cancer and write about it, but no one's going to know about it unless you market that book.
You can follow Brian's award-winning blog, Book Marketing Buzz Blog, and connect with him on LinkedIn and Facebook. If you're an author or want to be one, Brian's insights on publishing, book marketing, and media visibility are essential. Brian, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
He's Brian Feinblum. For more episodes Like it, share it, subscribe to it. This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. I will talk to you again next time.